Hey there you guys, welcome back to the Doug and Racecraft YouTube channel. On this episode, we break stuff we probably shouldn't have broken in the first place. Alright guys, so where we begin this video, we are going to go to Chicago to pick up a set of cylinder heads for the 82 GT. So just a quick background, I ended up putting valve springs in the stock heads to match that camshaft that I installed. That camshaft just has lift and duration that's a little bit too much for the stock valve springs, so that it usually will float around like 4,500 to 5,000 RPM. Obviously not conducive to making some high RPM power. So, to make a long story short, one of the valve keepers ended up letting go. So it dropped a valve in cylinder 2. I'm pretty sure it's the exhaust valve. I haven't pulled the heads off yet. Did a compression check on cylinders 1 and 2. Cylinder 1 was fine. Cylinder 2 didn't have any compression, obviously. So I stopped there. So instead of buying just new keepers and retainers to match these valve springs from Comp Cams, that was gonna be about 200 bucks. So for a couple $100 more, I ended up finding a set of GT40 heads off of a 96 to mid 97 Explorer. It's about 3 hours from here to there, so it should be a pretty nice drive. All right there guys, we have procured the goods, currently on the way home. This shop actually was in Chicago. There's a skyline you can see right there. Usually when somebody says they're in Chicago, they're in one of the suburbs. So in a little bit of stop and go traffic right now, we're gonna go ahead and head back home. We're back in the garage. Just got back about an hour or so ago. I'll show you the heads here. We're getting them painted right now. We'll show you when they're done. So the long and short of what happened is I was out driving the car and we got a little froggy from a stoplight I did with my brother. And all of a sudden I was going to shift from first to second. Started sounding like it had a huge exhaust leak, and it sounded like it went down a cylinder. So I limped it to the parking lot that was just at the end of that road, had it towed home, did a compression test on cylinder 1, had about 150 psi. Cylinder 2 showed literally nothing. The needle didn't even move on the pressure tester. I had just done the valve springs that Comp Cams recommends for that camshaft that I have. These are them, or this is one of them. This is the one that came off because the retainer broke. Dual valve spring, or I guess it's a single spring with like an internal damper. You can see the spring, the really thick thing in there. These are the stock springs. Installed height's about the same, pretty close. I mean, nothing worth sneezing over. So I can't find the original keeper right now, but basically the keeper for the valve split in half so that the valve, there's nothing holding the valve up for cylinder 2. So as you can see, it's the exhaust valve for cylinder 2, and it's down a lot further than all the rest of them are, and it doesn't move. So I put my borescope down the cylinder with the plug still out, and I could see a little witness mark on the top of the piston. So I don't think it hurt the short block, luckily, but we'll find out here in a minute. All we gotta do for this is take the headers off, the top end, basically the top end's gotta come off, obviously, since I have new heads to replace these ones. So what that's going to entail is the accessories coming off. I already got the alternator and the upper radiator hose off. I took off the upper heater hose. This bolt for the power steering pump's going to have to come out, at least enough that I can take the head off. Both headers will have to come off, and the intake manifold down. So let's get you guys on the tripod and we'll just tear into it. Okay there guys, so as you can see, we got the passenger side cylinder head off. There's where the valve was hitting the piston, as you can see, just Nothing too serious, just a little wear spot there. I didn't run it for very long after it obviously went down that cylinder. And here's the valve. As you can see, she's got quite a bend on her. Surprisingly, it didn't crack the valve seat. I'm assuming why this happened. Like I said, it broke one of these keepers here. There's two of them in the top of each valve that actually hold the retainer to the valve against the spring. The one on the exhaust valve on cylinder 2 broke in half, so it released the retainer on the valve, so there's nothing holding the valve up anymore, so it dropped down in the cylinder, contacted the piston, game over. So the reason I think this happened is because the exhaust valves, I didn't get aftermarket retainers, and I don't think that would have helped even if I did. So as you can see here, this is the exhaust valve for cylinder 3. This is the intake valve for cylinder 3. The problem is that the exhaust retainers are like this bearing type thing. This is one of them off. This inner piece spins, and it's obviously a lot thicker. So what that does is, these springs are rated for, I think, 140 pounds closed on the seat, which means this spring is pushing up with 140 pounds per inch of force against these retainers. So since this spring was being held down more, that had more seat pressure on this valve. So instead of having 140 psi on the seat, it probably had 170, if I had to guess. These springs have an installed height of 1 inch 700 thousandths. So since this is installed lower, the spring is more compressed, as you can see. Like I said, that was the problem with these heads. These are just E7 heads. Ironically, what I already did was, when I took this valve out, I did slide it back in this hole just to see if it did hurt the guide at all, which on aluminum heads, these valve guides would be bronze. I've seen it before. If you hit a valve off of a piston with a set of aluminum heads, it'll split the guide in half. I thought maybe that had happened here. Luckily, that didn't happen, so let's go ahead and get the other cylinder head pulled off the car, and we'll compare them to the new cylinder heads, which are sitting on that fender stand right there, and we'll keep going from there. Hey guys, we got the cylinder heads off. This would be the passenger side cylinder head, and this is the matching cylinder head for the GT40. These are the new ones. As you can tell, they boiled these heads out, they decked the surface, installed new hardware where it needed it, not new valve retainers, but new keepers, new valve seals, as you can see on the inside there. A couple small differences just to note off the bat. The plug orientation is slightly different. As you can see, the GT40 head is slightly laid over a little bit more, whereas these ones stick more proud of the head. Obviously, these are E7 heads. These came on Mustangs since 1987 up until 1995, and I think they came on 302s that came in vans and trucks even after that. So another thing to note, the plugs are different. I thought they were the same, but they're not. So as you can tell, the plug for the GT40 head is a little bit longer, but the boss for the head is sunk more into the head than it is on the E7 head. So if you line up the seat for the spark plug, as you can see, the tapered part here that rests in the cylinder head, the plug sticks out more, so it will protrude a little bit more into the cylinder. The actual porcelain part of the plug is pretty much the same length for all intents and purposes. Okay, so we got the heads flipped over. They are pretty similar on the bottom side. I know the GT40 valves, intake and exhaust, are a little bit bigger than the E7 heads. So when I say E7 or GT40, what I'm referring to is the engineering number, which is on the bottom of each cylinder head. So as you can see there, it's an E7TE. E is the decade, so E would be 1980, and 7 is the year, so 87. 1978 heads would be D as in Delta, and then the number 8 is 8, so 1978. These are an F3ZE head. GT40P heads are an F7TE. So the letters after the year connotation would be for whatever department they were for. So Ford, Lincoln, Mercury, and then trucks, cars, whatever. I'm not too hip on that stuff anymore. I don't really remember offhand. The other good thing about GT40 heads versus GT40P heads is that they don't have the smog chambers in the ends of the cylinder heads. So as you can see here, this would be the port where the crossover for the smog pump would be on a normal cylinder head, whereas the GT40s don't have that. They had that in the intake manifold. So that's the nice thing about these heads, they don't have that. So let's go ahead and get the cylinder head installed and we'll pick it up from there. Alright guys, so some time has passed since I originally started this video. Originally, obviously, I bent the valve with those cylinder heads, got the new cylinder heads on, ended up breaking the transmission about a week or two later, and finally got around to fixing that. And then we finally wanted to take the car to the track. So, you know, life happens. Some things came up with my family. My dad's been in the hospital for a little bit now, so just trying to get everything for that taken care of, trying to keep everything straight and clean around here for my parents so that they don't have to worry about it when they come home. I did want to finish this video up though, so in the next video we're going to take the 82 GT to the track. Will it run 12s? I guess you'll have to come back and find out. And the time has passed since the last video. I did change a couple things. I got front runners on it. Full disclosure, I've already taken the car to the track twice, so in the next video, like I said, I'll show you guys that. It's actually pretty fast. It's faster than I thought it would be. I'm not going to give you guys exact times yet, but it is pretty fast for a stock small block car. Basically, when I originally put these GT40 heads on, it didn't really pick up anything. It ran about the same mile an hour wise. Just using the draggy, I hadn't actually taken it to the track yet at that point. Didn't really pick up anything mile an hour or ET wise, which GT40 heads should pick up at least 30 horse, especially towards the peak. I thought there was something else. There was another restriction somewhere in the induction system and in the exhaust, because those headers that I had on it were Hedman 1.5" header tubes, which, don't get me wrong, they're better than stock manifolds, but 1.5" headers can only hold up to like 250 horse, which this is right around that point. So maybe those cylinder heads put it over the edge that it wouldn't support the cylinder head upgrades. I don't know, that's just my theory. I also did an intake manifold swap. So I had the Edelbrock Performer 289, which is good to 5,500 RPM. I want to run it to 6,000, 6,500 RPM. So the intake manifold I ended up getting was a Edelbrock Performer RPM, I'm pretty sure is what it is. Like I said, I'll show you guys all that in the next video. I also got a new vanity plate. Kind of cocky, especially for how slow the car is, but the slogan for the 82 GT was "The boss is back." So surprised that plate was available, so I went ahead and got that on the car and everything. So it's been about a month or so since I started making this video, so we're just finishing it up here and continuing the next one, and then we're going to get that Cobra done, and I have some stuff we're going to do with my dad's car that I'll show you guys too. That's going to do it for this video, you guys. Y'all take care now.